What do I recommend someone should eat when breaking a fast? Depends on the length of the fast, Elizabeth. If it's a longer fast, like if it's 3 days longer, bring in liquids first, something like a broth, just something to kind of introduce your GI tract to a little bit of food, but not overwhelm it. And so if you know, because that's what happens. Sometimes you're coming back from a fast, people put too much on the gut, and it basically can create some GI problems. Is it safe for a hypoglycemic person to fast for 4? Yes, it's safe for a hypoglycemic person to fast 14 to 16 hours. Again, working with somebody to help you navigate some of the other potential symptoms might not be a bad idea. Is intermittent fasting a bad idea if you have adrenal issues? How can you implement it if trying to heal your adrenals? So, no, intermittent fasting can be done in people that have adrenal issues. Where you have to be careful with adrenal problems is going beyond the 16-8. This is very safe for the vast majority of people, that 16-8 window. Even if you've got adrenal fatigue, if you've got low blood sugar or hypoglycemia, that 16-8 is very doable. And again, if you find yourself struggling trying to do it, there may be some key things that you need to address. Let me give you some examples. A lot of times when I see people trying to implement a fasting strategy, one of the reasons they have a blood sugar problem has to do with B vitamin deficiency or chromium deficiency. So a lot of times those deficits, those nutritional deficiencies, will lead to an inability to break down energy. And so when you go fast, your body's already in an energy deprived state, you basically become very hypoglycemic. So if you're considering fasting, then my advice would be if you've tried it in the past and you've struggled, then take a good quality multivitamin, consider a chromium and a B complex supplement for a good 4 weeks before you implement a fast. And this way you're getting those nutrients that your body may be lacking that help regulate your blood sugar. Because a chromium deficiency by itself can create or contribute to diabetes and hypoglycemia. And it could be something as simple as a little nutrient not being present in adequate quantities to allow you to be able to do a sustained type of fast. Difference between intermittent and time-restricted feeding. They're synonyms, Paul. They're basically synonyms. Time-restricted feeding is just, again, it's minimizing your window of eating into a relative time frame. Does blood type help you to know if fasting is a good or bad idea? I'm O positive. What kind of diet is best for O positive? Not really. I mean, blood type doesn't help you understand whether or not fasting is going to be helpful. You can have damage no matter what type of blood type you have. You can have autoimmune disease, you can have gut damage, and fasting can be beneficial to all blood types. So it's not necessarily an issue around blood type. If a person fasts and they're on Humira, what would happen? So if you're on Humira, it's not that anything necessarily is going to happen if you fast. You might feel better, depending on how well Humira is controlling your inflammation and your pain. I've had people that, as a strategy to help them, reduce their need for Humira and other type of biologic drugs for rheumatological arthritides, where we implement fasting, and when they feel dramatically better by implementing fasting, then they're better able to tolerate less of the dose of their medicine, and so it helps them to kind of wean down. But that should definitely be done under supervision. Don't make that attempt on your own. How often should you do a 48-hour fast to reap the benefits? It depends. I mean, how often do you want to do the fast is maybe the better question to ask, but it's not how often do you need to do a 48-hour fast. I mean, I also would ask you to kind of be honest when you're evaluating your own health. If you feel like you have the need for those benefits, then it's not dangerous to not eat for a 48-hour time frame, provided that you're not wasting, that you're not losing your muscle tone. Remember, just a 48-hour fast once or twice a month should be perfectly fine and perfectly safe. But do you have to do it? The answer, in my opinion, is no. A 16-8 or a 24 intermittent fast works really, really well if you're already healthy. Is it okay to take vitamins while fasting? Yes, it is. What you have to be careful of if you're going to take vitamins when you're fasting is that certain vitamins can cause nausea or upset stomach. And there's really two that come to mind, really three that come to mind that have the tendency to cause the greatest degree of upset stomach. on an empty stomach. And one of them is B vitamins. So taking B vitamins on an empty stomach, not for everyone, but for some people, can cause nausea and upset stomach. And then the other two are zinc and iron. Taking zinc and iron on an empty stomach can also create upset or irritation. So you've got to be careful with those ones. I love that. Lisa says, husband and I learned about intermittent fasting from you last year, started with the 16/8 version and immediately felt huge increases in energy. We have stuck with it and have absolutely experienced the benefits of doing so. Love that. So those of you that might be on the fence about whether or not it could be helpful, that's a great chime in. Thank you, Lisa. What about taking butyrate, tributyrate? What about taking it? You can take it, but your gut produces it. If you have a healthy microbiome, your gut will take, and it will take fiber from your diet and produce butyrate. So you can take butyrate as a supplement, but ideally get your gut in order and it will produce butyrate for you. What about the health of your teeth if you fast? Your teeth are just fine if you fast. Your teeth won't deteriorate, in an intermittent fast or even in a 1-3 day prolonged fast. So the teeth will do just fine. There's actually really great evidence that's coming out that shows that the oral microbiome improves with fasting. So in that regard, I would say you're probably doing your teeth a favor. How much can systemic enzymes help in autoimmunity? So systemic enzymes are very powerful, very anti-inflammatory, and very, we'll just say they help keep the blood viscosity at a very thin level, meaning that, some people struggle with their blood's too thick and it raises your blood pressure, increase your risk for heart disease. So systemic enzymes can really help with that. As far as autoimmune disease, systemic enzymes are not curing any form of autoimmune disease. They can be beneficial to the right program of autoimmune eradication, but systemic enzymes without diet change, without lifestyle change, are not going to do much to help a person recover from an autoimmune process. When you fast, can you drink water, tea? Yes, you can. You can drink water, tea, to sustain. You can drink liquids that are non-caloric. And actually, there's some really great evidence that's coming out that it says that it's not even really about not having food as much as it is about having caloric restriction, meaning it's not the going without food for prolonged periods of time that some scientists believe is giving the benefit. It's that you're reducing your overall caloric burden or caloric load is where the actual mechanism starts to work. Now, that being said, we do know, like I showed you earlier, we do know that prolonged fasting of over 3 days has some additional benefit to it. But these shorter benefits of fasting, it's a lot of it is again, it's a caloric restriction within a time frame, within a window. Let's keep going down on the left. Yeah, so if you're a diabetic and you're scared to do intermittent fasting, as I said earlier, start with a 14-hour window first, right? And get through that 14-hour window. But understand that if you're diabetic, there's a reason why you're diabetic. And I'm not talking about type 1. If you're type 1, it's probably because your pancreas beta cell production failed you in an autoimmune fashion. But I'm talking about, adult onset diabetes. Adult onset diabetes, oftentimes, I said this earlier, one of the big reasons why diabetics can't fast and they suffer hypoglycemic episodes is because their B vitamins and their chromium and their zinc are all on the floor. They don't have adequate quantities of those nutrients. So you might consider, if you're diabetic, supplementing for 3 to 4 weeks with those nutrients. Get a good B complex like our B Complete. You can do a zinc, like a 50 milligram zinc per day is a good amount, and then chromium, 200 to 400 micrograms a day of chromium in what's called a polynicotinate form. Those are all really good strategies to implement. If you're diabetic and you've struggled with fasting in the past, do that for a month and see if that doesn't allow you to do a better fast with less experience of side effects. Will 1 gram of carnitine, L-carnitine per day, be sufficient to overcome deficiency and improve benefits of fasting? Not sure what you mean by that. I mean, 1 gram of carnitine, if you're deficient in carnitine, will 1 gram a day be enough to overcome a deficiency? Possibly, depending on the status of your GI tract and whether or not you have any other issues with absorption and digestion. But as far as, I'm not quite sure I understand your question. It maybe re-clarify for me. Let's see. Scroll down. Holly's asking, would it be possible to take supplements without food if you're fasting? I think I answered that one already. Laura's asking, I read that people with adrenal fatigue shouldn't do intermittent fasting or keto. I have adrenal issues among others and have avoided fasting because of that. It's not that you have to avoid fasting if you have adrenal fatigue. Again, it's just that you want to support your adrenal and make sure that you're supporting your adrenal function through that process. It can create a hypoglycemic stage when you understand that when you are in adrenal fatigue, generally speaking, there's different stages of adrenal fatigue, but one of the stages of adrenal fatigue is that you're overproducing cortisol. Cortisol is a hormone that raises your blood sugar and your blood pressure. And if your blood sugar is being raised by your hormones and not your diet, then fasting should be relatively easy. But if you're in a later stage of adrenal fatigue where you're underproducing cortisol, now what happens, you go for a prolonged fast, you can't get to a certain point because cortisol should come out at a certain level and help your body, help your liver dump some of your stored sugar into your bloodstream so that you can maintain your blood sugar levels smoothly. And that's one of the things that happens to people with adrenal fatigue. But if you're supporting your adrenal glands, it's not dangerous to do a fast with adrenal fatigue. Let's see here. Why do doctors think fasting is dangerous and don't recommend it? I can't speak for other doctors, but I would surmise that many doctors that say fasting is dangerous is because they don't know anything about nutrition. You have to understand that the average doctor has less than 7 hours of training in nutritional science, and so they're not really even qualified to make an opinion or render an opinion about fasting. That's my opinion anyway. Yep, but I can't speak for why all of them say that. Let's see. Hello from Phoenix. Been doing intermittent fasting after removing suggested items from the kitchen. I have dropped 27 pounds without even trying. Love it. Thanks for chiming in and sharing that experience. It's fantastic. What would be the best strategy to build muscle while intermittent fasting? 5 meals and lots of carbs doesn't seem to be a good idea. No, it's a terrible idea. So the best way to build muscle while you're intermittent fasting is time your meal properly with your workout. So what's the best time to improve muscle growth post-exercise? It's about a 60-minute window after your workout. So like me, I work out in the mornings, usually pretty early. And so I will have when I work out, I'll have a protein that comes in after that workout in order to help me repair and rebuild my muscles. And then I'll go a prolonged period of time. So like generally speaking, just depending on your workout schedule and depending on what you do in a day, you time your meals around your workout to make sure that within 60 minutes of the meal that you're incorporating enough amino acids and enough protein to help repair and rebuild your muscle. Because the other issue here is remember, intermittent fasting is not calorie restriction, it's timing restriction. So a lot of that just depends on how you live your life. Some people work out after they get off of work. Some people work out in the morning. Some people work out on their lunch break. So think about what your schedule needs to be and make sure you have a good feeding window an hour after your workout if you're trying to build muscle but also incorporate intermittent fasting. Can a prolonged fast induce lean muscle loss? Yeah, if you go beyond the 7-day mark, you're definitely getting into the muscle depending on how much fat you have, to break down, you get into that 7-day, you can get into your lean muscle. Like a guy like me, if you're regular weight, you get into that beyond 7 days, you're going to start stripping muscle out. Can I speak about autophagy? Yeah, so autophagy, for autophagy to be activated, actually, we've seen in some research studies that autophagy is activated with that 16-8 pattern. So you can actually get into some of the autophagy just by intermittent fasting for 16 hours. Now, you get greater autophagy when you get into 2 to 3 days. And so those of you that don't know what autophagy is, it's basically it's old cells killing themselves to make room for new cells so that your body can heal and repair. So it's an accelerated way to heal and repair. Can fasting reset gut and alter glucose metabolism? Yes, I think we kind of talked about that a little bit earlier. I showed you how fasting can reset a lot of the parameters within the GI tract, helping to reset the gut altogether. If you've had high lactate and high pyruvate on an organic acid test, I wouldn't put too much faith or weight in that test, and not because it can't be valuable, but because a reading like that that's based on urinary output is a reflection of your last meal more than it is a reflection of what is actually going on long-term in your body. And so there are a number of things that can influence lactate and pyruvate on one of those organic acid tests. Yeah, I like that. Fasting is flexible, it's free, it can be added on top of any diet, and it's one of the most powerful tools for healing. So it absolutely is. How come extended fasting can cause some women to not have a menstrual cycle? Women are less prone for longer term fasting than men. Now, women can generally tolerate the intermittent fasting strategies really well, but when they start getting into multiple day fasts, a lot of women, it can start to affect their cycle, and that has to do with a number of different parameters. But one of the parameters is, for a woman's body to perceive, that there's a healthy, viable ability for a healthy, viable egg to be conceived, or to be gosh, I'm brain farting on the word, to be inseminated. Then if there's not food there, then a woman's cycle might basically deter the pregnancy when that woman is fasting for longer periods of time. So it's a lot of it is the timing around the woman's cycle. So I think I answered that one. What is safe to drink during a fast? Water, tea. Even if you can tolerate or do coffee is safe to drink during a fast. Any non-caloric beverage is perfectly fine. Is fasting helpful for CFS? I'm going to assume you mean chronic fatigue syndrome. It can be. I've seen a lot of chronic fatigue individuals do really, really well with fasting. Is colon cleanse helpful or harmful prior to extended fasting? You don't need to do a colon cleanse. I mean, the colon cleanses for most people that are in good health are overrated. Just joined. Is it safe to fast if your BMI is under 18? Yes. BMI is not a good indicator of your body composition. BMI, which is body mass index, is a height-weight ratio. So, like for example, my BMI is over 25, and that's BMI over 25 is considered obese. And so again, people that have more lean mass, more muscle mass, way more. And so from their height to weight ratio, their BMIs are going to be higher. And this is where BMIs can be tricky, because you can be thin but internally fat. You can be what we call skinny fat, and you could have a really, really good BMI but have really bad blood sugar balance, and a fast might be the wrong move for you. So it's not necessarily that you want to base your ability to fast on a BMI. BMIs are, in my opinion, an overrated marker that people use and put too much weight on. So how to prepare for a fast? I mean, the best way to prepare for a fast is to just have good diet habits. You can prepare for a fast. I mentioned this earlier, and that if you have a blood sugar problem, you can prepare for a fast by using a high-quality multivitamin, chromium supplementation, and B vitamin supplementation. But beyond that, there's no need. That's the great thing about fasting. There's no need to prepare for it unless you have a pre-existing blood sugar condition. Okay. Intermittent fasting now for 3 years feels great. Thanks for the suggestions. I love it. So just another testimonial of somebody doing long-term intermittent fasting and feeling fantastic. Let's scroll down on both sides there. Let's see. Can you enter autophagy with a 16-8 fast on a plant-based diet? Yes. If you're vegetarian, some people are primed for vegetarianism. You don't have to be a meat eater to fast or benefit from fasting. You can be plant-based diet as well. So the question is a little complex from Brooks, and that's for those experienced in fasting, is dry fasting an option for accelerated autophagy? Is kidney function important when fasting, or can fasting improve kidney health? So that, I would say more the latter. Fasting can improve kidney health. Is kidney function important for fasting? It is, and here's one of the reasons why. If you're overweight and you begin a fasting process, and one of the first things that can happen to people who are overweight is weight loss. Now, if you're overweight because you're inflamed, then your fat cells are holding on to potential biotoxins. They're holding on to potential inflammatory compounds and constituents. And so there's a name for that. We call it angry fat. So when you're breaking down angry fat cells, those chemicals are being put into your bloodstream, and your kidney has to filter them. So yeah, you do want your kidneys in good standing when you're fasting, especially if you're chronically inflamed. But at the same note, fasting will improve kidney function. So it's not an issue. I mean, I've had people who were in stage 2 and 3 kidney failure do fasting and be just fine. So it's not that you can't do fasting if your doctor's told you your kidneys are under functioning. Okay, go down for me on the right. Let's see, I'm already thin and I don't want to lose weight with fasting. How to avoid losing weight? Do the intermittent fasting. Again, intermittent fasting is not caloric restriction. You still get great benefits of fasting without restricting or reducing your caloric intake, so weight loss shouldn't be a problem. Just joined. Don't you get a lot of stomach acid during fasting? No. No, you don't make necessarily more stomach acid because you fast. Now, you might get to a point where your body's used to a meal in those if you're doing longer fasts, and so in those first few days, your body might be producing stomach acid on cue, like a Pavlovian type cue, because you usually eat at noon or you usually eat at 5. But no, you don't make necessarily more stomach acid that's detrimental. Does coffee with coconut milk break your fast? Yeah, coconut milk is pretty caloric, so that it's the coconut milk that would break the fast. Doc, why do I react to high oxalate foods after antibiotics? So, well, that's not a fasting question, but I'll answer it. Antibiotics knock out their type of bacteria that you have in your GI tract called oxalobacter, and they help break down oxalates. So you might be reacting to them because an antibiotic can destroy or diminish the quantity of oxalobacter in your GI tract. But number 2, the number 1 side effect of antibiotics is yeast overgrowth, and yeast actually are notorious for increasing oxalate production. So it could be one of those reasons, it could be both of those reasons. Okay, I think we're up on the hour here, but I'm going to answer one more question. Jack says, just found you, lucky me. Thanks, Jack, for your kind words. How often do you go live? We go live every Monday night at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're here in Texas. So tune in anytime. And if you don't get my emails, subscribe to my newsletter, hit up glutenfreesociety.org and make sure you subscribe. That's how we send out notifications to let you know where we're live and when we're going live, because sometimes we also do live impromptus with special guests and things of that nature. So if you want to keep up to date, come and subscribe and get on our mailing list at glutenfreesociety.org. We won't spam you up. We'll just give you great information. And for those of you who don't know, right now we're actually getting ready in next month as we're launching our glutenology masterclass again. So those of you who maybe wanted to go through it a few months ago but couldn't go through it, now's the time. We're going to put that link in the feed for you. All you have to do is go and subscribe. Actually, put your name in the box and name and email, and you'll be on the list. So when the event launches in about 4 weeks, You'll have free access to all, plus a couple of bonus modules. We just finished shooting a 2-hour module on leaky gut that you're not going to want to miss. It's an addition that wasn't in our last rendition of the Glutenology Masterclass. So if you want to get access to that, go sign up for that and make sure you get logged in. All right. Thanks for joining me. Thanks for spending your Monday night. We'll see you back here hopefully next week for another episode of Pick Dr. Osborne's Brain. Like I said earlier, if you haven't already subscribed, hit us up at glutenfreesociety.org and make sure you subscribe. And as always, if you found this information helpful and you know somebody who's struggling in their health, please make sure you share it with them. Together we can save 100 million lives. Have a great night. We'll see you next Monday. Hey, if you've got a functional medicine or health question that you'd like me to answer for you, make sure you send me an email, glutenology@gmail.com, and we'll do our best to create a video answer just for you. Have a great day.